looks like Denzel Ward, Kevin Johnson, Joel Bitonio. The Browns will be very close to full strength, are the reports coming out of Berea after they tested after the game. It looks like everybody is on track to get somewhere near full strength.
Yeah, Dave, the two guys that you really have to feel happy for, not that you don't feel happy for a lot more than two, is, Kevin Stefanski works as hard as he does this year against really stacked odds in dealing with COVID as a first-time head coach. He gets to the playoffs and then doesn't even get to leave his basement for the first playoff game. So the fact that they won should put him, if everything goes well, put him on the sideline for a playoff game. And that's a good and just reward for the season he's had. And the other guy is obviously Bitonio, a guy who's been through what he's been through in this town and then gets to the playoffs and isn't able to play. So if those guys can get back for this game and the other guys that you mentioned are back, there's no reason why this team can't go in there and I don't want to say shock the world, but certainly they have the offensive firepower to match points with a team like Kansas City. And that's really what you need against Kansas City, as opposed to maybe some other opponents.
Yeah, you're not going to shut that offense down. Nobody has all season. Nobody will. The thing that becomes a challenge is they haven't turned the ball over a whole lot, and this defense will need to create turnovers. I'm not expecting them to get 5, but they got to win the turnover battle if they want to have a chance.
Absolutely. But Roethlisberger ends up throwing for 500 yards. I mean, I know that looks really bad on a defense, but it's also a lot of those yards were, I don't want to say conceded quite, but they certainly played a lot different kind of defense once they were up 28-0. So I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into that. Certainly it's going to be a big challenge dealing with Kelsey and Mahomes. But who knows, I mean, this Kansas City team lost to the Raiders early in the season in one of those games that, was fairly high scoring. So sometimes teams that sit out a week don't always come back, ready to play right off of the bat in their first playoff game. So the Browns are not, I know they're probably a touchdown underdog or
close to 10 points. Yeah,
close to 10.
9.5, 10. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big number, but right now I would take the underdog if that was the line, and I don't bet. I want people to know that.
The flip side of it is when you look at all the passing yards that you mentioned, they were playing not to give up the deep ball. Don't get beat deep, and that, you know what, they should have done that. If they want to have 700 yards and lose by 11 points, we'll give them 700 yards.
Yeah, and if Ward is back, that's going to help strengthen that. There were certainly some soft spots in that secondary last night, and Roethlisberger kept going after him. But all in all, I mean, when you can go into a Pittsburgh and play the way they did with their practice weeks being disrupted for basically 2 weeks, let alone one, I think that says a lot. And the fact that they play like that with their head coach at home in a basement tells you that, he's solidified a lot of good principles on that team that, that were able to still show themselves in his absence.
And the final thing we'll do on this segment before we go to a break, keep in mind, they're down 3-4. They put in their last offensive lineman. Bill Callahan, their offensive line coach, was out. His assistant was out. They were like on the 3rd offensive line coach to go along with the 7th and 8th offensive linemen, and they still were able to put 48 points on the board.
Yeah, and people shouldn't, I mean, I know those guys are coaches, they don't play, but Bill Callahan's a terrific offensive line coach, and I think one of the big reasons why this team has been as successful as it's been this year. So that's not a small loss at all.